Zixthar moved carefully through the ancient ruins, his six-fingered hands brushing away centuries of dust from a strange metal panel. The young archaeologist's excitement grew as his scanner indicated technology that didn't match any known civilization patterns. "Dr. Clara, I found something unusual," he called out, his voice echoing through the abandoned structure. The senior xenohistorian shuffled over, her aged frame moving with deliberate care. "What is it this time, Zixthar? Another piece of space debris?" "No, look at these markings. They don't match any known species in the Confederation database." Dr. Clara adjusted her optical enhancers and leaned closer. Her dismissive expression slowly changed to one of genuine curiosity. "Interesting. Very interesting." 3 days later, Alan Grant sat in his small office at the Terran Historical Institute. He stared at his communication screen with growing irritation. The message from Zixthar seemed almost designed to waste his time. Ancient human artifacts. Before recorded spaceflight. Alan muttered to himself. Complete nonsense. Everyone knew humans were relative newcomers to the galactic community. They had achieved spaceflight only 1,200 years ago, making them among the youngest spacefaring species in the Galactic Confederation. Still, Alan was a historian with a reputation for thoroughness. He packed his bags and booked passage on the next transport to the remote planet, where Zixthar and Dr. Clara waited. The planet's surface was dry and windswept. Alan stepped off the transport and immediately regretted his decision. Zixthar rushed forward, nearly bouncing with excitement. "Mr. Grant, thank you for coming. You won't be disappointed, I promise." Dr. Clara offered a more measured greeting. "We appreciate you making the journey, Mr. Grant, though I understand your skepticism. Please, follow us." They led Alan to an excavation site where a partially unearthed structure stood. Its architecture was unlike anything Alan had seen before. Not quite human, but somehow familiar. "We carbon-dated these artifacts," Zixthar explained. "They're approximately 50,000 years old." Alan laughed. "That's impossible. Humans were still using stone tools 50,000 years ago." "That's what the official records say," Dr. Clara replied. "But look at this." She handed Alan a small object. It looked like a data storage device, but of unknown design. More surprisingly, it had markings that resembled ancient human writing. "This predates any known human writing system by tens of thousands of years," Dr. Clara said. "Yet the linguistic patterns are unmistakably human in origin." Alan turned the object in his hands. "This could be a hoax, or perhaps you've misidentified alien writing as human." "We considered that," Zixthar said, "but we found this." He led Alan deeper into the structure. On a wall, partially preserved, was a mural. It showed bipedal figures that were unmistakably human, standing among stars, surrounded by technologies far beyond anything in the historical record. "This doesn't make sense," Alan whispered. "That's exactly what makes it interesting," Dr. Clara said. "The official history of humanity might be incomplete or deliberately falsified." Alan spent the next week examining the site. With each artifact he studied, his skepticism weakened. The evidence suggested something extraordinary. Humans may have been an advanced spacefaring civilization long before their officially recognized history began. When they presented their preliminary findings to the Galactic Archaeological Society, they were met with ridicule and dismissal. "Humans? An ancient species? Preposterous," declared Professor Jork, the Society's president. "Next you'll claim they invented faster-than-light travel." Alan felt a strange sense of both anger and determination. "The evidence deserves proper investigation." "Your evidence is nothing but misinterpreted alien artifacts," Jork replied. "This meeting is concluded." As they left the Society building, Alan felt oddly shaken by the experience. Why was he taking this rejection so personally? Back at the dig site that evening, Alan examined a small metallic disc they had unearthed earlier. As he ran his fingers across its surface, Strange symbols began to glow with a soft blue light. A sudden flash of images filled his mind. Stars, planets, vast ships, gone as quickly as they appeared. He dropped the disc, breathing heavily. What just happened? He whispered to himself, staring at his trembling hands. Something deep within him had responded to that ancient technology, something hidden in his very genes, and it terrified him. Alan woke with a start, his heart racing. The dreams felt too real. He saw vast cities among the stars, humans walking alongside strange alien species, and massive ships that traveled between worlds. These weren't normal dreams. They felt like memories. "You look terrible," Dr. Clara said when Alan joined her and Sixthar for breakfast. "Didn't sleep well." "Just strange dreams," Alan said, not ready to share more. "We need to go to Earth," Sixthar announced suddenly. If humans truly had an ancient spacefaring civilization, there might be records in your oldest archives. 3 days later, they arrived at Earth's historical preservation zone. The massive library complex housed humanity's oldest surviving records. Most were digital copies, the originals having been destroyed centuries ago during the global wars. A stern-faced woman with gray hair met them at the entrance. Her badge identified her as Susan Miller, head librarian. "I received your request," she said coolly. "I must inform you that access to the pre-spaceflight archives is restricted. We have proper academic credentials," Dr. Clara said. Susan's eyes narrowed. "What exactly are you looking for?" Ellen stepped forward. Evidence that humans might have achieved spaceflight before the officially recorded first launch. Susan's face remained carefully blank, but Alan noticed her hands tighten slightly on the tablet she held. "That's impossible," she said. "Follow me." She led them through a maze of corridors deep into the archive. The walls changed from modern materials to older construction. Finally, they reached a heavy door with a complex lock. "These are our oldest records," Susan explained. "Most date back only 2,000 years. Nothing here will support your theory." They spent hours searching through files, finding nothing unusual. As closing time approached, Alan noticed Susan watching him with an odd expression. "We'll come back tomorrow," Sixthar said, disappointed. After Dr. Clara and Sixthar left, Susan approached Alan. "Why are you really here?" she asked quietly. "The truth," Alan replied. "We found artifacts suggesting humans were in space tens of thousands of years ago." Susan was silent for a long moment. "Wait here," she finally said. She returned 15 minutes later. "Follow me. Say nothing." Susan led Alan to a small elevator hidden behind a storage room. They descended for a long time before the doors opened to reveal a dimly lit chamber filled with ancient physical books and strange devices. "This section doesn't officially exist," Susan whispered. "What I'm doing could cost me everything." "What is this place?" Alan asked, amazed. "We call it the Before Archives, records from before the Great Forgetting." "The Great Forgetting? I've never heard of that." "Of course not. It was forgotten," Susan said with a sad smile. "These materials suggest that approximately 50,000 years ago, human civilization suffered a massive collapse, but not from natural causes or war." She pulled out an ancient book. The pages were made of some unknown material that seemed to shimmer slightly. "This suggests the forgetting was deliberate. Humans chose to erase their own history." Alain gently touched the book, and like with the artifact, images flashed through his mind. Stars, ships, and a terrible feeling of fear. "There are coordinates here," he said, not knowing how he knew this. "Coordinates to a place called the First Outpost." Susan stared at him in shock. "How did you know that?" "It took our order generations to decode that information." "Your order? Who are you really?" Before she could answer, an alarm sounded. Susan quickly closed the book. "Someone's coming. We need to leave." They hurried to the elevator, but as the doors opened at the top, they found themselves facing a man in a government uniform. His name badge read William Craig. Susan Miller, you are in violation of security protocol, he said coldly. And you, he turned to Alan, are accessing restricted information. This is a simple academic inquiry, Alan protested. Is it? William's eyes were hard. Then why did you activate the beacon? What beacon? Alan asked, confused. The signal that just went out from this facility toward the restricted zone in the Omega sector. The same signal that hasn't been detected in 5,000 years. Susan stepped between them. He doesn't know what he's done. Then you tell me, Alan demanded. What did I just do? You woke them up, Susan whispered. You told them we're ready. Alan, Susan, Zixthar, and Dr. Clara sat in a small room at the back of a busy spaceport cafe. They had narrowly escaped William Crave by slipping through a maintenance tunnel in the archives. We need to get to those coordinates, Alan insisted. That's impossible, Susan replied. The Omega sector is a restricted zone. No ships are allowed there. The Confederation says it's dangerously radioactive. Is it really? Dr. Clara asked. Susan hesitated. No, that's the cover story. Zixthar leaned forward. Then we need our own ship. I might know someone. Alan said after a moment of thought. An old friend. 2 hours later, they met Kate Johnson at a private docking bay. She was a tall woman with short blonde hair and quick eyes that noticed everything. Her small cargo ship, the Starwander, had seen better days. Alan Grant, she said with a grin. I never thought you'd call me for something illegal. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important, Helen replied. Kate studied the group. A librarian, 2 aliens, and you. Quite the team. What's in the Omega sector that's worth risking prison? The truth about human history, Alan said simply. Kate's smile faded. You too. The dreams. Alan stared at her. You've had them. Stars. Cities. Ships. For years now. Kate rubbed her temple. Getting worse lately. We need to go to these coordinates, Susan said, showing Kate the numbers from the ancient book. Kate studied them. I can get us there, but we'll need to modify the ship's identification codes, and we'll need supplies. Not cheap. Money isn't a problem, Susan said, pulling out a credit chip. My order has prepared for this moment for generations. 3 days later, the Starwander approached the edge of the Omega sector. The ship's sensors showed no radiation. The warning buoys are broadcasting false readings, Kate noted. Someone really doesn't want visitors. As they passed into the restricted zone, Alan felt a strange tingling sensation at the base of his skull. Judging by Kate's expression, she felt it too. There's nothing on long-range scanners, Zixthar reported from the sensor station. Try different frequencies, Susan suggested. The technology we're looking for might not register on standard scanners. Dr. Clara adjusted the settings. Suddenly, a massive object appeared on the screen. By the first stars, she whispered, it's enormous. Floating in the empty space was a structure larger than any space station in the Confederation. Its design was unlike anything they had seen before, with sweeping curves and sections that seemed to shift slightly as they watched. It's beautiful, Alan said, feeling an unexpected sense of familiarity. Kate piloted the ship closer. As they approached, lights began to activate across the station's surface. It's responding to our presence, Zixthar said in wonder. No, Susan corrected. It's responding to them. She pointed at Alan and Kate. A beam of blue light shot out from the station, scanning their ship. A voice spoke through the communication system in an ancient dialect of human language that somehow Alan understood perfectly. Human genetic markers recognized. Welcome home, children of Earth. What do we do now? Kate asked, her voice shaking slightly. We dock, Alan said with certainty he couldn't explain. Inside the station, the air was surprisingly fresh. The corridors lit up as they walked, responding to their presence. The architecture was both alien and oddly familiar to Alan. This is definitely human design, Susan said. but thousands of years more advanced than anything in our records. They reached a central chamber with a pedestal in the middle. As Alan approached, a holographic figure appeared, a human-looking man in strange clothing. "I am Gardian," the figure said, "caretaker of this facility. After 50,000 years, the children have returned." "What is this place?" Alan asked. "This is Outpost Alpha, the first extrasolar human installation, established 75,382 standard years ago." The group stared in shock. "That's impossible," Dr. Clara said. "Humans weren't even civilized then." "Your history is incomplete," Gardian replied. "Deliberately so." Before he could explain further, alarm lights flashed. Gardian looked concerned. "A Confederation patrol vessel has entered the system. They have detected your presence." Kate grabbed Alan's arm. "We need to leave." "No," Gardian said urgently. "You must stay. The awakening has begun. If you leave now, everything will be lost again." Gardian led them quickly through a maze of corridors as red warning lights flashed overhead. The sounds of distant alarms echoed through the station. "This way," the holographic figure said, passing through a wall that suddenly turned transparent as they approached. "This section has shielding against their sensors." Once inside the hidden room, the walls solidified behind them. The space was filled with large screens and strange devices that hummed with quiet energy. "What is this place?" Alan asked, looking around in wonder. "The Hall of Records," Gardian replied. "The true history of humanity is preserved here." The largest screen lit up, showing images of ancient Earth. But this wasn't the primitive world of hunter-gatherers that history recorded. Instead, they saw gleaming cities with advanced technology, flying vehicles, and humans working alongside machines. "This is impossible," Dr. Clara whispered. "Human civilization should have been in its infancy 75,000 years ago." "Human civilization was at its peak," Gardian corrected. "Earth was merely one of thousands of human worlds." The images change, showing massive ships traveling between stars, humans establishing peaceful contact with dozens of alien species, a thriving interstellar civilization. "If this is true, what happened?" Zixthar asked. Gardian's expression grew somber. "The ascendance happened." The screen displayed new images, strange alien beings with elongated heads and six-fingered hands. Their ships were angular and threatening. The Ascendants were a species driven by envy and fear. They could not accept that humans had achieved so much, so quickly. They wanted human technology for themselves. The screen showed terrible scenes of war. Planets burning, ships exploding, countless lives lost. The war lasted nearly a century, Gardian continued. Humans were winning at first, but the Ascendants were willing to do things humans would not. They developed biological weapons that targeted human DNA. They poisoned entire star systems. Ellen felt sick watching the images. Somehow, he knew they were true. These weren't just historical records. They felt like memories. Humanity faced extinction, Guardian said. So our leaders made a difficult choice. Project Genesis. The screen showed humans gathering in what looked like medical facilities. "What was Project Genesis?" Kate asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "A radical solution. If humans couldn't win the war as they were, they would change themselves, hide themselves. They used advanced genetic engineering to suppress their own technological knowledge and cultural memory. They made themselves forget." Susan asked in shock. "Yes. Most humans were relocated to Earth, which was restored to a primitive state. Their technology was dismantled or hidden. Their genetic code was altered to develop more slowly. And most importantly, their memories were encoded into dormant DNA sequences to be reawakened when the time was right. That's why we've been having dreams," Alan realized. "Our memories are starting to come back." Suddenly, the door to the room slid open. Everyone turned, expecting Confederation soldiers. Instead, Susan stood there, looking shocked. "But you're here," Alan said in confusion, looking between the Susan who had been with them and the identical woman in the doorway. The Susan next to them smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "I must thank you all for bringing me here. I couldn't have found it without you." Her appearance shimmered and changed, revealing a being with an elongated head and six-fingered hands. "An ascendant," Gardian exclaimed. "What's left of them?" the creature said. "We've had to adapt over the millennia." It looked directly at Alan, just as you did. "Who are you?" Kate demanded, stepping protectively in front of Alan. "My name is Vexor. I am a High Chancellor of the Confederation. Our ancestors have waited a long time for this moment. The Confederation is controlled by ascendant descendants," Dr. Clara asked in shock. "Only the highest levels," Vexor replied. "We've been patient, guiding development, keeping humans contained." "Where's the real Susan?" Alan demanded. "Safe, for now. She'll join you soon enough." Gardian suddenly glowed more brightly. Security protocols activated, initiating Human Protection Directive. The floor beneath Vexor suddenly opened, and the alien fell with a scream. The opening closed immediately. "We don't have much time," Gardian said urgently. "The station's defense systems will hold off the patrol ship temporarily, but more will come." "What do we do now?" Zixthar asked. "We wake up humanity," Alan said, somehow knowing exactly what needed to be done. Alan placed his hand on a glowing panel in the Hall of Records. His entire body tingled as information flowed into his mind. Knowledge hidden in his DNA for thousands of generations began to unlock. "What's happening to him?" Dr. Clara asked with concern. "The awakening," Gardian explained. "His dormant genetic memory is activating." Kate stepped forward. "I want to do it too." "Are you sure?" Zixthar asked. "It looks painful." Alan's face was twisted in concentration, sweat beading on his forehead. But he nodded slightly, encouraging Kate. "I'm sure," Kate said, placing her hand on a second panel. As Kate began her own awakening, the real Susan was brought to the Hall of Records by small floating robots. She looked shaken but unhurt. "The Ascendant locked me in a storage room," she explained. "These helpers found me." "The maintenance drones recognized your genetic profile," Guardian said. "You carry the bloodline of the Keepers." "The Keepers?" Dr. Clara asked. "A select group of humans who maintained fragments of the truth through generations," Guardian explained. "They didn't know everything, but enough to guide humanity when the time came." Suddenly, the station shook violently. Alarms blared louder. "The Confederation vessel is attempting to breach our defenses," Guardian reported. "We don't have much time." Alan gasped and pulled his hand away from the panel. His eyes were different now, sharper, more focused. He looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "I remember," he whispered. "Not everything, but so much." Kate also stepped back from her panel, her awakening complete. "The junk DNA," she said in wonder. "It's not junk at all. It's data storage. Knowledge encoded in our genes." "Precisely," Gardian confirmed. "Humans are living libraries of their ancient civilization. We need to get to the cradle," Alan said with new authority. "It's the only place with the equipment to broadcast a wide-scale awakening signal." "The cradle?" Zixthar asked. "The first human colony, the birthplace of our interstellar civilization." The station shook again, more violently this time. "Hull breach in Section 14," Gardian announced. "Confederation forces are boarding the station." "We need to leave now," Kate said urgently. "I remember the coordinates for the cradle. We can take my ship." "You'll need this," Guardian said, producing a small crystal device. "It contains activation codes for the cradle systems." "What about you?" Alan asked the holographic figure. "My programming is tied to this station. I cannot leave. But my purpose has been fulfilled, to preserve knowledge until humans returned." Guardian's expression became almost sad. "Now go. Complete what your ancestors started. They ran toward the docking bay where the Star Wonder waited. Along the way, they encountered 3 Confederation soldiers. Before anyone could react, Alan made a series of quick, precise movements. The soldiers were unconscious in seconds. "How did you do that?" Dr. Clara asked in amazement. "Muscle memory," Alan replied. "Combat techniques encoded in my DNA." At the ship, Kate's movements were equally transformed. She activated systems with incredible speed, her fingers dancing across controls as if she had been flying advanced ships her entire life. The genetic memory includes skills, Susan realized, not just information. As the Star Wonder detached from the station, they saw more Confederation ships arriving. Kate executed a series of impossible maneuvers, evading pursuit craft with ease. "Setting course for the cradle," she announced, "preparing for faster-than-light jump. The Confederation will be right behind us," Zixthar warned. "Let them come," Alan said, his voice filled with newfound confidence. "Humanity has been asleep for 50,000 years. It's time we woke up." The ship's engines flared, and they vanished into the depths of space, carrying humanity's true history and last hope with them. In the distance, hundreds of other humans across the galaxy began to dream more vividly of the stars as the first ripples of the awakening spread through their dormant genes. The Star Wonder emerged from faster-than-light travel near a small, unremarkable red star not listed on any modern star charts. Ahead of them floated what appeared to be a dead planet, gray, lifeless, and covered with impact craters. "That's the cradle?" Zixthar asked, unable to hide his disappointment. "The surface is camouflage," Kate explained as she piloted the ship closer. "Just like how humans hid their history, they hid their most important places." Alan stood at the navigation console, his fingers moving with certainty over the controls. "Sending identification codes now." The barren planet suddenly flickered, like a visual distortion. The gray, cratered surface faded away, revealing a blue-green world with vast oceans and sprawling cities. "Remarkable," Dr. Clara whispered. "A planetary-scale holographic disguise." "The ancients had to hide it completely," Susan said. "This is where everything began." As they entered the atmosphere, they saw the cities were empty, preserved but abandoned. Kate landed the ship near the largest structure, a massive dome, at the center of the main city. "The Genesis Chamber," Alan said with reverence. "This is where humans first developed the technology to modify their own DNA." They exited the ship cautiously, but the air was fresh and clean. The streets were silent, maintained by automated systems that had run for 50,000 years. "Someone's here," Kate said suddenly, her enhanced senses detecting movement. From the shadows of nearby buildings, figures emerged. Humans, dozens of them, dressed in simple clothing but carrying advanced weapons. At their center stood a tall man with graying hair and calm eyes. "Welcome home," he said. "We've been waiting for you." "Who are you?" Ellen asked. "My name is Frank Morris. I am the commander of the Sleeper Guard." "The Sleeper Guard?" Kate asked. "Throughout human history, some of us naturally awakened," Frank explained. "Our genetic memories activated through random mutation or specific triggers. Most were dismissed as mentally ill or became historical figures noted for their genius. Some of us found each other and formed this group to prepare for the full awakening." He led them into the Genesis Chamber, a vast room filled with technology far more advanced than anything in the Confederation. At the center stood a crystal spire that pulsed with soft blue light. "This is the beacon," Frank said. "It can send the awakening signal to all humans with the dormant genetic markers." "How many will awaken?" Susan asked. "Not all humans carry the markers anymore," Frank replied. "Roughly 30% of the population has the complete memory sequences, but that's still billions of people. The Confederation will try to stop us," Zixthar warned. "They're probably tracking us right now." "Let them come," Frank said grimly. "We've prepared for this moment for generations." He showed them to a command center where dozens of sleeper guards monitored communication channels and defense systems. Reports coming in from across human space. A young woman announced, "Spontaneous awakenings are increasing." The initial signal from the ancient station triggered a chain reaction. "People are remembering who they really are," Frank explained. "The knowledge was always inside us, waiting." On large screens, they saw news reports from human worlds. People collapsing in the streets, waking with new knowledge. Some demonstrated incredible abilities: enhanced intelligence, perfect recall, advanced problem solving. "The Confederation is declaring a state of emergency," another guard reported. "They're calling it a human psychotic break epidemic. They're trying to contain it," Frank said. "But it's too late." Alan stepped toward the beacon. "We need to amplify the signal. Wake everyone at once." "There's a problem," Frank admitted. "The full activation requires a complete genetic key. No single modern human carries it." "What about all of us together?" Kate suggested. "Alan and I have awakened different memory sequences, with Susan's keeper bloodline and your natural awakening." Frank nodded slowly. "It might work. But there's another issue. The Ascendant Descendants have sent a fleet. They'll be here within hours." Alan looked at the others, his face determined. "Then we have hours to wake up humanity and prepare for the fight of our lives." Outside, the skies of the ancient human homeworld began to fill with ships, not Confederation vessels, but human ships from across the galaxy, piloted by the first wave of awakened humans, answering a call they didn't fully understand, but could not ignore. The Genesis chamber hummed with energy as Alan, Kate, Susan, and Frank stood around the crystal beacon. Each placed their hands on different facets of the structure. The crystal began to glow more intensely, responding to their touch. "It's recognizing our combined genetic patterns," Frank explained. "The ancient humans were clever. No single person could activate it alone, preventing misuse." As they maintained contact, the crystal's glow spread throughout the chamber, connecting to other systems. Outside, massive structures long dormant began to rise from beneath the city streets. Defense towers, communication arrays, and energy generators came to life after 50,000 years. "The planetary defense grid is activating," a sleeper guard reported excitedly. "Systems at 80% capacity and rising." Dr. Kalara and Sixthar watched in amazement. The technology they were witnessing was far beyond anything in the Confederation. "My people believed we were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy," Sixthar said quietly. "We were wrong." In orbit above the cradle, more human ships arrived every minute. Most pilots were confused, drawn by instincts they didn't understand. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, their awakening accelerated. They landed and joined the growing resistance. The beacon pulsed suddenly, sending a wave of energy outward. The wave wasn't visible, but everyone felt it pass through them. "Signal broadcasting on all frequencies," a technician announced. "Both standard communications and the genetic resonance band." On screens throughout the chamber, they watched as the wave spread across human space. On hundreds of worlds, humans stopped what they were doing. Some collapsed momentarily. Others simply stood still, their eyes widening with new understanding. Knowledge locked in their DNA for thousands of generations began to surface. "It's working," Susan whispered. Alarms suddenly blared. "Confederation fleet detected," a guard called out. "Multiple warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're led by a command vessel 3 times the size of standard Confederation destroyers." "That's the High Chancellor's flagship," Frank said grimly. "The Ascendant Descendants are coming in force." On the main screen, they saw the massive ship leading dozens of smaller vessels toward the cradle. The human ships in orbit moved to intercept them, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. "They'll be slaughtered," Kate said. "Most of them barely understand what's happening to them." "Activate the orbital shields," Frank ordered. Ancient defensive systems powered up, creating a shimmering barrier around the planet. The Confederation ships opened fire, their weapons impacting the shield with blinding flashes. "The shield is holding," a technician reported, "but it won't last forever against that firepower." "We need to do more than defend," Alan said. "We need to show the galaxy the truth." He stepped toward a different console and placed his hand on it. The machine recognized his genetic pattern and activated. "What are you doing?" Dr. Clara asked. "Broadcasting everything," Alan replied. "The complete history, the evidence from the station, the truth about the Ascendants, sending it to every communication system in the Confederation. The Ascendant descendants will try to block it," Susan warned. "They can't block it all," Frank said with a smile. "Not the way we're sending it." The broadcast went out on countless frequencies, through standard channels, and through the awakened humans themselves. Each became a living transmitter, sharing the knowledge with everyone around them. In the Confederation flagship, High Chancellor Vexor watched in growing horror as his carefully maintained deception crumbled. The truth about humanity's ancient past and the Ascendant's crimes spread throughout the galaxy. "Sir," an officer reported, "we're receiving messages from multiple Confederation worlds. They're demanding we stand down." "Impossible," Vexor snarled. "Continue the attack." But on the screens, he could see Confederation ships breaking formation, refusing to fire. Some turned and departed. Others moved to protect the human vessels. "This isn't over," Vexor whispered. He activated a private communication channel. "Prepare the final protocol. If we cannot rule, no one will." On the cradle, the Defenders celebrated as the Confederation fleet began to disintegrate, but Frank's expression remained grim. "This victory came too easily," he said. "The Ascendant descendants have maintained control for thousands of years. They won't surrender without a final strike." Alarms blared throughout the Genesis chamber. Screens showed the High Chancellor's flagship breaking from the retreating Confederation fleet. Instead of withdrawing, it accelerated toward the cradle. "They're on a collision course," a technician shouted. "Shields at maximum," Frank ordered. Alan studied the sensor readings and felt a chill. This isn't just a suicide run. Their reactor is building to critical levels. They're turning their ship into a bomb. If that explosion breaches our shields, it could destroy half the continent, Kate said, accessing her newly awakened knowledge of ancient weapons. "Can we stop them?" Susan asked. "Our weapons can't penetrate their shields in time," Frank replied grimly. Alan suddenly straightened, a new memory surfacing. "There's another way." "The mesh." "The mesh?" Dr. Clara asked. "A network that connected all ancient humans," Alan explained quickly. "The awakening restored parts of it. If enough awakened humans focused together, a combined mental effort," Kate realized, "like our ancestors used to coordinate their actions." "It's been 50,000 years since anyone attempted it," Frank warned. "We have to try," Alan insisted. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. Around the planet, then across human space, awakened humans felt his call. Those who had progressed furthest in their awakening responded instinctively, adding their mental energy to the growing network. In the command center, screens showed thousands, then millions of humans joining the mesh. Their combined consciousness focused on a single goal: stopping the flagship. High Chancellor Vexor felt a strange pressure building around his ship. Warning lights flashed across control panels. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Unknown energy fields surrounding the vessel," an officer reported nervously. "Our engines are losing power." "Impossible," Vexor snarled. "Nothing can interfere with our drives." But the ship continued to slow. The massive vessel shuddered as invisible forces gripped it from all sides. On the cradle, Alan stood with his eyes closed, sweat running down his face as he coordinated the joint effort. Kate, Susan, and hundreds of others added their strength to his. "We're holding them back," Kate whispered. "But we can't maintain this forever." "We don't need to," Alan replied, his voice strained. "We just need to give them enough time." In space around the flagship, Human ships moved into position. Their pilots, guided by the mesh, acted in perfect coordination. Energy beams lanced out, precisely targeting the flagship's shield generators. With its shields weakened, smaller craft moved in closer, focusing on the vessel's engines. Precision strikes disabled the propulsion systems and power relays to the overloading reactor. Inside his ship, Vexor watched in disbelief as his final plan crumbled. The reactor warning toned down as emergency systems engage, preventing the catastrophic overload. "This is not how it was supposed to end," he whispered. "We ruled for thousands of years." The door to the bridge slid open. A squad of his own officers entered, their weapons raised. "High Chancellor Vexor," the lead officer said, "by order of the Confederation Council, you are relieved of command." Back on the cradle, the defenders watched as the flagship was boarded and secured by its own crew, many of whom had turned against their leaders after learning the truth. As days passed, representatives from worlds across the galaxy arrived at the cradle. They came to witness humanity's ancient home and to rebuild the Confederation on new terms. In the Genesis chamber, Alan, Kate, Susan, and Frank stood with Dr. Clara and Zixthar, watching alien diplomats mingle with awakened humans. "What happens now?" Dr. Clara asked. "We rebuild," Alan replied. "Not just human civilization, but a better galaxy. Our ancestors chose to forget rather than seek revenge. We should honor that choice by creating something better than what came before." "And the ascendant descendants?" Zixthar asked. "They'll face justice," Kate said, "but not vengeance. We're better than that." Susan looked out at the gathered species. "Our ancestors hid for 50,000 years, so that someday we could re-emerge not as conquerors, but as teachers and partners." Outside the chamber, the ancient city hummed with new life. Ships arrived from across the galaxy, bringing curious visitors and returning humans eager to learn their true history. In orbit, the remnants of the Confederation fleet now stood as protectors alongside awakened human vessels. The stars that had once belonged to humanity's first great civilization beckoned again. "Our ancestors left us a message in our very DNA," Alan said, looking up at the night sky visible through the chamber's crystal dome. "They believed we would one day be ready to return to the stars, not as the overlooked race we've been, but as the ancient guardians we once were." The galaxy was changing. Humanity had awakened, and the stars welcomed them home.